What if the deepest sources of joy, what if they weren't about having a perfect life?
Hmm.
What if joy is actually right there, accessible, even when things are, well, really difficult?
That's such a powerful idea.
Yeah.
And it's exactly what we're digging into today, isn't it?
It is. We're guided by two, frankly, incredible figures, His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, and Archbishop Desmond Tutu.
Yeah, their lives alone are just,
Yeah.
wow. I mean, one, a spiritual leader living in exile for, what, over 50 years?
Right. And the other, a Nobel laureate who stood right up against apartheid, fearless.
Exactly. And yet, somehow, both of them just radiate this profound sense of peace and, well, joy. It's remarkable.
It really is. And our guide for this deep dive is their amazing book, The Book of Joy, Lasting Happiness in a Changing World.
Hmm.
And this isn't just theory, right? It comes from a week they actually spent together in Dharamsala, India.
Yeah, that context is so important. You picture these two elder statesmen, doubly aware of their shared history, maybe thinking this might be one of the last times.
Adds such a layer of poignancy, doesn't it?
It really does. And their conversation, it's this blend of deep spiritual wisdom, but also intensely personal stuff, exile, apartheid, illness.
And surprisingly, so much humor. They're constantly teasing each other.
Oh, absolutely. So our mission today is basically to pull out the key insights from that week. What did they figure out about lasting joy? How do you find peace when life is just messy?
And crucially, what are the practical things, the things you can actually do starting now to bring more joy into your life? We want those aha moments, but, without feeling totally overwhelmed.
Precisely. So first things first.
Yeah.
What is this joy they keep talking about? Is it just like a fleeting good mood?
Or is it something more, I don't know, dependable, a way of being?
That's where they start. They look at joy not just as one single feeling. It's more like a whole spectrum.
Right. They mentioned Paul Ekman's work, identifying all these different shades, pleasure, amusement, contentment.
And then they also bring in Matthew Ricard, who talks about those more profound, almost exalted states of joy.
And it's interesting they even touch on that research from Glasgow University,
Oh, yeah.
suggesting that maybe joy is the only fundamental positive emotion, if that's true.
Wow. Yeah, that really makes understanding it even more critical for just, well, living a good life, doesn't it?
Totally. So understanding joy at its core. But then the big question, especially considering their lives.
How does it fit with suffering?
Exactly. How can joy possibly exist alongside everyday hassles, big losses, illness, even seeing others suffer?
And this is where their experience just becomes so incredibly valuable. The Dalai Lama, exiled for decades.
He doesn't downplay the pain of it at all.
No, but he talks about finding potential within that adversity. He has that amazing line.
Wherever you have trouble.
That is also the place of your potential to practice.
Yeah. How do you even get your head around that?
It's about perspective, isn't it?
Yeah.
He emphasizes training yourself to see beyond the immediate problem.
Right. To find the opportunity for, I guess, inner growth,
Yeah.
compassion, wisdom, things that often only come through hardship. And Archbishop Tutu, reflecting on apartheid, his cancer, he really highlights connection, doesn't he?
He does. How connection with others fuels joy, and how going through suffering yourself can actually weirdly deepen your empathy.
Make you want to help others more.
Exactly.
And I loved how they push back against the idea that joy means becoming some kind of ascetic, denying yourself simple pleasures.
Oh, that part was great. The bit about food and even intimacy.
So human. It's not about giving everything up. It's about appreciating the good things, but keeping your focus on deeper values.
Absolutely. And the Dalai Lama brings in this idea he calls mental immunity.
Explain that a bit.
Well, think of it like your physical immune system protecting your body.
Right.
He suggests we can build a similar resilience in our minds.
Okay.
He uses that analogy of the ocean, the surface can be choppy, with waves like our fleeting emotions.
But the depths stay calm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So by nurturing positive emotions, understanding how our minds work, we can handle the mental storms better.
And the Archbishop makes it so practical, finding quiet in a traffic jam.
Right. Such a perfect everyday example of applying that inner resilience.
Okay, so if we're aiming for this lasting joy, what stops us? What are the big obstacles they identify?
Well, fear comes up a lot, and they link it to frustration, anger, which are natural responses, sure.
But constant fear, constant anger, that's corrosive.
Totally. Bad for your immune system, bad for your peace of mind. Cultivating calm seems essential.
They also talk about stress and anxiety, particularly in modern life.
contrasting our sort of frantic taste with maybe more traditional rhythms.
And Tutu, their translator, made that interesting point about independence.
Oh yeah, how striving for independence can actually make us feel less in control.
Which just feeds the anxiety loop, right?
Exactly. And then there's sadness, grief, unavoidable parts of being human when we lose someone or something.
But their advice isn't to suppress it, is it?
No, not at all. They acknowledge it fully, but they emphasize turning outward, connecting compassion rather than getting sort of sucked into despair.
That Buddhist story, the woman and the mustard seeds.
Such a beautiful illustration. And Gordon Wheeler's idea that grief is really a measure of our love.
Powerful. And despite everything they've seen, both of them hold on to this deep belief in fundamental human goodness.
Yeah, even with all the terrible news out there, the Archbishop's experience with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa.
I mean, the stories of forgiveness that came out of that, just staggering.
It really showed the whole spectrum, didn't it? Incredible darkness, but also incredible light.
They also flag loneliness and self-centeredness as joy killers.
Reminding us we're all interconnected.
Mm.
And envy, jealousy, those corrosive emotions. That story about the Tibetan refugees and the green cards was so human.
It really was. And hearing about Mandela in prison.
Yeah, transforming from understandably an angry young man
to someone capable of profound forgiveness. It just shows that inner change is possible, even in the absolute worst conditions, even sleeping on the floor, as they mentioned.
And that ties into accepting reality, doesn't it? Even difficult realities like illness.
That anecdote about Dr. Dondon and the Coke Zero, perfect.
It's lighthearted, but the message is serious. Acceptance is the first step towards making things better.
They also touch on impermanence, preparing for death, not with fear, but as a natural part of life.
And meditation comes up, too, as a way to create that pause.
That space between stimulus and response.
Right. Allowing for a more compassionate reaction rather than just knee-jerk negativity.
So all these ideas seem to circle back to some core principles, these pillars that support their joy. They actually name them the 8 pillars of joy.
They do, and they're really practical. The first is perspective. Just being able to reframe things, see situations differently.
Which they both exemplify constantly, given their life stories.
Absolutely. Then humility. Recognizing we're all connected, we have limitations. Their self-deprecating humor is a great example of this.
And speaking of humor, that's the third pillar. Laughter, not taking yourself too seriously.
So important. Apparently, the recordings of their week together are just filled with laughter.
I can believe it. Okay, next is acceptance.
Right, acknowledging reality without fighting it, which connects back to what we said about illness or difficult circumstances.
Then forgiveness.
Yeah.
Central for Archbishop Tutu.
Hugely.
Yeah.
Those stories from the TRC, like Beth forgiving her son's murderer, just incredible. And the Archbishop talking about his own regrets with his father.
Yeah.
It shows forgiveness is a human journey.
Definitely. Okay, what's next?
Gratitude. Actively appreciating what you have. Brother Steindl-Rast's quote is amazing here, linking gratitude to fearlessness and generosity.
And the Dalai Lama's story on the plane? Seeing the mother caring for her sick child, finding spiritual growth even in difficulty?
Pillar 7 is compassion. Kindness towards others, but also, importantly, towards ourselves.
Yeah, the Archbishop saying try it out to skeptics of compassion is brilliant.
And the Dalai Lama being genuinely surprised by the whole Western idea of self-hatred. It really makes you think, doesn't it?
It does. And Hinton's story finding joy in prison by focusing on others.
Yeah.
Wow.
Powerful testament. And finally, pillar 8, generosity.
Giving your time, resources, just your presence.
Yeah, and they point out how our brains actually reward us for giving. It makes us feel good. They even give examples from Japanese companies showing how generosity benefits everyone.
It's so clear throughout the book that their own friendship is a huge source of joy for them.
Oh, completely. The book is just full of these little moments, the teasing, holding hands.
And dancing at the Tibetan children's village.
You just feel the warmth and affection between them. It's palpable.
Remember the story about the visa denial for the Dalai Lama, preventing him from going to the Archbishop's birthday?
And the Archbishop's reaction. So strong. It showed how deep that bond was.
And the Dalai Lama joking at the airport about looking forward to feeling more unhappy. That playful ease.
That's real friendship, isn't it?
And that visit to the Tibetan children's village. Talk about joy amidst adversity.
The resilience of those kids. And the Dalai Lama, like a father figure. Tenzin's story, and how the Dalai Lama comforted him.
So moving. It just underscores how vital community and connection are.
And then the trick candles and the dancing. Pure, shared happiness.
Their core message really seems to be that relationships are absolutely fundamental for joy.
Absolutely. And it's fascinating how they connect all this ancient wisdom with modern science.
Right. They talk about neuroscience research, people like Richard Davidson, Daniel Siegel.
Yeah, showing how things like focus, generosity, meditation, they actually change your brain in positive ways.
The Dalai Lama seems genuinely appreciative of that scientific validation.
He does. It bridges that gap sometimes perceived between spirituality and science.
Okay, so let's pull it all together. Based on everything they shared, what are some really practical things you, the listener, can actually do to cultivate more joy?
Well, they offer quite a few tools. There's a simple breathing practice for focus and calming stress.
Okay, like mindfulness breathing?
Essentially, yes. And the Archbishop's morning medication walk, it encourages you to find your own kind of mindful movement.
It doesn't have to be sitting still on a cushion.
Exactly.
Mm.
Then there's the giving and receiving practice, Tonglen, which is about expanding compassion. Very powerful.
They also outline specific steps for things like forgiveness.
Yep. 3 steps to forgiveness.
Yeah.
And 7 ways to expand our circle of compassion. Even 5 steps for dealing with overwhelming emotions. Really concrete stuff.
And woven through it all is that constant theme: nurture your relationships. Find your tribe, your community.
Joy isn't really a solo project, is it? It thrives in connection.
Just like their own lives show so beautifully.
Exactly. Their lives, their friendship, their proof that this lasting joy is possible, even when the world feels chaotic. It's about that mix of inner work and reaching out.
So maybe the final thought for you listening is this. Think about Hinton, choosing joy in prison. Consider the power you have in any given moment to make a similar choice, maybe on a smaller scale in your own life.
And how even those small, everyday acts, a moment of gratitude, a kind word, reaching out, how they can ripple outwards.
Creating more joy for yourself, yes, but also contributing to a more joyful world, starting right where you are. So maybe reflect on those 8 pillars. Which one kind of speaks to you most right now?
And what's just one tiny thing you could do today or this week to lean into that pillar a little more?
Something to think about. That's our deep dive for today. Until next time.